So our next presenter will be Mathew Wilson, who's the CEO at Sterling Metals.
All right. Thanks, Taylor. Thanks, Red Cloud, for having me. Those are great stories. Black Rock, Silver X, the new one. That's a cool story there. That's a fun one to listen to. I'm going to take you on a bit of a different path here. This is a completely new asset in a completely new area with no historical mining and really no silver mining in the area at all. We're in the top of the Great Northern Peninsula of Newfoundland. This is a new company started in August of 2020. We've been around 2 years, and we think that we're on a path to uncovering Canada's next high-grade silver district. All right, so like the others, there are forward-looking statements here that are going to be made. So my background, my name is Mathew Wilson. I'm CEO of the company. I spent 14 years investing in junior mining companies around the world. And this one really checked a lot of boxes when we acquired this project. This project had never been drilled before. But really when looking for new potential assets, grade is king, as people like to say. And finding grade in drill holes, which we were able to do last year, proves that there's some sort of catastrophic event that was able to bring high-grade silver, and for us, copper, zinc, lead, and antimony to surface in concentrations that are very relevant on a global scale. And along with that, we have a 12-kilometer long footprint. So we have a district scale potential footprint with high grades of polymetallic mineralization. And what really sets this project apart is that is the project that's one of our drill sites right now in the Northern Peninsula of Newfoundland. That's a logging road that goes through. We're 30 kilometers away from an airport, and we are in a wonderful jurisdiction with supportive community. So great place to be, perfect place to build a mine as we push this forward. For some context, the Sail Pond project is up right near the top of the Great Northern Peninsula in Newfoundland. There's been about $4 million spent to date on the project. Like any news story in any industry, there's usually a good story that has to go with the growth of a company. This was found at the end of 2016 by a local school principal who was out prospecting with his son, driving on a local logging road, and looked to his left, saw a big boulder of blue, thought that was something significant, chipped it away, drove 3 hours south to the company Altius Resources, who went and assayed the boulder, found 500 grams silver and 2.5% copper. So got really excited. They ended up staking the project, spent about $1 million over the next few years, and we acquired it in 2020. This project is a 12-kilometer long footprint and outcrops along the whole way. There have been a lot of people on the project. There's a lot of different comparisons. One of our favorites, though, is the comparable to the Coeur d'Alene district and the Keno Hill district in the Yukon. The string of pearls analogy, where you have a whole bunch of very high-grade pod-like deposits that form along this sort of 12-kilometer long strike. And the trenching results really back that up. I mean, this is the very beginning, but this outcrops and this, when you open up the ground a little bit, it shows these narrow veins, basically from bottom to top, that carry everything from 3,000 grams silver equivalent up to about 1,000 grams, 12 kilometers north. So you can walk this project the entire way and basically find this stuff on surface where, again, the silver carries about 40% of the grade, and then it's made up of copper, lead, zinc, and antimony. That analogy to Keno Hill is important because the trenching that you just see there, and then the soils, they all line up. I'm not going to go into the geophysics, but the chargeability and the resistivity also kind of gives you these targets that show you that there is this pod-like potential along this 12-kilometer trend. And why we like to talk about Keno Hill is because it's a pretty good district to talk about. This 12-kilometer trend in Keno Hill was 9 mines that ranged everything from 250,000 tons to 3 million tons of this really high-grade mineralization that produced 230 million ounces from 1913 to 2000. So you've got a lot of very tightly packed, very high-grade ore-grade rock that kind of goes along this same trend line. So we don't have any historical mining here, and so I made this fun slide just to kind of give some perspective on the distance that we're trying to cover, and basically what you could walk along. So the island of Manhattan. You can walk from Wall Street to Harlem in Manhattan, and that's our project. And we're basically hoping that every neighborhood along the way is a mine. And so for us, from Wall Street to Harlem, you're seeing outcrop the whole way. the soils line up, and you get these nice this nice geophysics to line up with it as well. That gives you kind of the scale of targeting that we're going after. Our first drill program, we focused on the south. We ended up drilling about 8,000 meters last year. You know, this was the first program ever. We focused basically where we hit. It was a tough time during COVID to get there, but we ended up intercepting what turned out to be about a 400-meter long strike of essentially a low-grade ball of sulfide mineralization that was really surrounded around these kind of this 10 to 20 meter chute that was surrounded around these high-grade veins. And the key with the high-grade veins, which were everything up to about 4,500 grams silver equivalent, is that this system is powerful enough. There was some sort of catastrophic event that was able to bring grades like this up to surface, such that we kind of feel that we are now finding the leaves of the tree, so to speak, as now we're following this along to find the trunk. And some of the grades are 1,600 grams silver, 29% zinc, 9% copper, and 2% antimony. So that grade looks pretty good. And the way that it kind of has formed to form as a treasure map for our drill program this year is, again, this is about 400 meters of strike, 80 meters wide and 200 meters of depth. And you get this kind of high-ish or higher low grade kind of area, which you're looking to follow, that's surrounded by this larger kind of brecciated dolostone that carries mineralization. So the key here is just the area of sulfide mineralization that kind of shows us where to go. Made this map just as a virtual kind of thing to go through, which is where we started. So these are the copper soil samples that we're looking at. This geology, that contact between the blue and gray there, that's the dolostone. It meets this argillite shale in these two different formations, and that's generally where mineralization seems to pool. We drilled a fence essentially along this 12-kilometer, and like I said, we just sort of focused on where it was that we hit first. It took us about 6,000 meters of drilling, to be honest, across there to really get a sense of where to focus on. And in the last 10 holes of our program, we were able to get a little bit more of an understanding together. And what we started to see is these two chutes, plunges of mineralization. This higher grade chute here, which started to show you that this higher grade chute plunge alongside this warp in the argillite. And then there was a lower grade plunge that went along that kind of showed that demonstrated the strike potential of this blob of mineralization. So why that becomes pretty important is because that argillite has become the kind of the structure that control that trap for mineralization. And this warp right here repeats itself several times over across the project. So it gives you some sort of targeting idea, because if you're going through a 12-kilometer strike that's never been drilled before and only was discovered at the end of 2016, you can spend a lot of time chasing veins or chasing ideas. And so it really becomes important to narrow down on a theory. And that's why our drilling last year was so significant, because we were able to see that this control, the argillite, repeated itself. It was significant enough to just demonstrate mineralization was there, and it repeats itself several times over throughout this 12-kilometer trend. What's been great this year is we've been able to figure out even further that at the top of each of these argillite contacts, basically, you have these structural fault zones that line up with these gaps of chargeability and these resistivity highs that line up with soils, that line up with trenching, and it creates these X marks the spot targets for us as we kind of push through. So the idea of this year's drill program, we've been drilling, we got about 3,000 meters done in this program this year so far. Me drilling, ideally we just keep drilling as we go. But the idea here is to show that this repeats. We're looking for that feeder system for these high grade veins that repeats itself several times over to show that we have these pearls unraveled along this 12-kilometer strike that would be the same as the string of pearls that you see at Keno Hill. It's always good to have a comp. The story at Vizsla is one that I look at a couple times, mostly because it's one of the best silver stories of the last couple of years in terms of their ability to generate value and push things forward. And I think all of us here can be frustrated in how silver prices pushed everyone's stock up and down. But one of the things that is good is in the discovery cycle, there's always the phrase buy on mystery and sell on history. And our story was no different. But for the Vizsla story, they made their discovery in January of 2020. And this is an asset 14 kilometers long. There's a history of 100 years of mining here. There's adits, there's vein maps, and they put this together. And it still took them the next 6 months to follow up on it and then create the $400 million company that they are today. For us, I would argue that our results were similarly impressive. We had the 144 grams over 12 meters. You had the high grade veins. And our market cap obviously dropped a lot as well, in which case we raised $5 million in April of this year, basically on the idea that we have now been able to create this springboard effect where we're going to follow up on our drilling from last year and create value in the marketplace as we push forward. So the other thing that makes this project a little bit different is when you look at the high grades within the sulfides, you see silver, copper, lead, zinc, and antimony. So I really like silver as it gives you a nice lever to gold. The inflation argument, you can play with that. But I also like the industrial uses of this all. I'm sure everyone can speak about the benefits of owning silver here. But we also have very high grades of copper, zinc, and antimony. I think that the key to focus on is that we know that the grades are here in the system and we know that the footprint is there. And the idea is to find several different tree trunks along the way of what will be high grade silver, copper, zinc, antimony, and lead. So you get this diversified metal exposure along with the silver. Our cap structure, we have 69.5 million shares out, about $6.5 million in the bank. The last deal we raised was $5 million with the charity component at 28 cents and hard dollar at 20 cents. The cheapest deal we've ever done, this was a news story in August of 2020. The cheapest deal we ever did, including founders, including all shareholders, was 15 cents with no warrant. We bought our stock 15 cents, 30 cents, and 52. So it was a bit of a painful process to do a deal at 20, but I think that the risk of not having capital is definitely got outweighed by the benefit of having it. Our warrants are at 40 cents, 45, and 78. So our stock right now is at 35, and so still out of the money. And but we're funded to push this drill program through this year. So in summary, district scale potential play. We're drilling right now. We have world-class grades that you've seen in drilling. We're going to push forward to demonstrate that there are multiple pearls along this 12-kilometer anomaly that can create a global footprint and a strategic asset for the country in Canada. So thanks a lot for the time, and talk to you soon.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Matt.